Today we're going to talk about self-love, the epidemic of our time. Hello everyone and God bless. This is Father Father Michael with Living Orthodox. And so what better topic to address how to live Orthodox than addressing a very prevalent issue in our modern society, which is self-love, a sort of manufactured narcissism or an overly nourished ego. So one book I'd recommend on kind of understanding the epidemic of social media and its impacts is The New Media Epidemic by Jean-Claude Lachette. And you can get this book from Holy Trinity Monastery, from the bookstore, or from holytrinitypublications.com. It's by the print shop of St. Jovo Plashayev that prints and publishes this. And it's a fantastic book from a man who holds a PhD in philosophy and in theology. And he has a very strong grasp of how media and other things have really introduced a new evil into our lives, a new addiction, and a way for us to nurture unhealthy habits that actually, despite the hyperconnectivity that we experience in the world, we are becoming increasingly disconnected from everyone around us. I've seen it myself where, I've gone to homes and seen the kids on their cell phones, not interacting with their parents at the dinner table. I myself had that issue when I was younger and cell phones started to become a big deal. It always seems like you're afraid of missing out on what's going on. And we see, even in the online Orthodox world, an extremely negative impact that social media is having. Now, there are extremely positive aspects. There are priests and lay people out there who have incredible ministries and outreaches that rely on social media. You see laymen like David Erhan, Jay Dyer, Orthodox Shahada, Seraphim Hamilton, all these guys working really hard to bring the faith to people, to help them understand things. And whether you necessarily agree with all those people or not, it really doesn't matter. We all have character flaws, myself included. And I'm a priest, and I'll be honest with you, I have character flaws. I make huge mistakes. I go to confession. I need guidance. We are in a hospital for the sick. And even, the staff need the physician. Even the staff are in need of healing. The problem is that social media kind of presents to us an image, and one that isn't necessarily reflective of reality. You go on to Instagram, Twitter, you'll see people, going on long spiels or quick, quippy, intellectual responses to things, oftentimes using grammar or a vocabulary that's intentionally meant to mislead or confuse people in order to shut down an argument. This is something that it's a secular book, and it's one I would definitely recommend to read. It's certainly not one for kids. There's a lot of mature content in there, but it addresses a lot of issues that we see in our North American capitalist society, and that's Empire of Illusion by Chris Hedges. And he talks about how in the universities these days and amongst intellectuals, there's this ivory tower complex of needing to use certain language, a certain type of language, in order to talk down to your audience, but not allow them to understand the topic well enough to fight back. And we see this, unfortunately, in some circles online in Orthodoxy, where people will argue that things have to be heavily nuanced, that we can't understand certain things, that, we should only listen to people with, a master's in divinity. And yet these same people will argue against people who have PhDs in dogmatic theology, or, they will try to argue a certain point against someone like, Jay Dyer, who has his master's in philosophy, which is not a small feat by any stretch of the imagination. But one thing you'll see with these types versus people like, Father Peter Heers in the Orthodox Ethos or Jay Dyer, they're not interested in bringing the conversation to a ground level. They're interested in kind of keeping a certain elevated platform. And so a lot of the time, this is fueled by what social media itself gives way to in its addictive properties. And that's the need for validation, to be, seen a certain way, and to have that feedback and the instant gratification that comes from that. And it's been proven that, when people see the like button getting hit on their photos or on their posts, that dopamine release happens and they feel good. But what happens when that happens regularly? Well, it's like with any addiction. Your brain becomes reliant on it. And soon you are looking for that dopamine fix every time you go on social media and post. It's one of the reasons why I got rid of Facebook. I can fully admit that I got caught up in pointless debates on there. I said things to people in the past that I'm not proud of, that I was too pejorative or too quick to be judgmental of their theological or spiritual state. And I didn't handle things in a mature way. And if anyone is listening who I argued with and who I'd hurt, it's the season of Lent. I ask your forgiveness, and I hope that you're praying for me. As I recall these things, I pray for you. And to be clear, the reason why I make this video and why I make most of my videos is these are things that I wish that somebody had made that I could have gone to for guidance or advice. We have to be careful that when we're using social media, that we're not feeding our own enemy, which is ego. And ego has this way of always looking to protect itself, of always looking for validation, to accomplish something without really doing anything. And social media provides the perfect avenue for that. It's another good secular book I read on the topic was by and again, when it comes to anything you read or see, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to discern. But this is objectively true. It's from a book called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And he points out in one portion of the book that, really stood out to me was how things like Facebook right away prompt us, what's on your mind? Twitter, share something. Instagram, share your pictures, share your experiences, show this off, show that off, show how smart you are. All these things can become really addictive. And worst of all, they become an avenue for our ego to be fed, for our sense of self-righteousness, our self-worth, our perceived social value. A lot of the time can become dependent on the kind of comments that we get, how many likes and shares we receive. And that can eat away at a person. There's been statistics that have shown that self-harm and suicide have gone up in relation to the use of technology and in particular social media. There's one survey I want to share. It's the Health Behavior in School Age Children survey in 2018, and it provided data on a range of areas, including deliberate self-harm. And based on a survey of 3,398 young people in England, the HBSC publishes reports every 4 years. Only 15-year-olds were asked about self-harm. The survey found that 25% of these had reported that they had ever self-harmed, and this was an increase from 22% in the 2014 survey. So in 4 years, there was a 22% increase. And that self-harm was, of course, more common among girls than boys, but rates had risen more in boys than in girls. So the boys have seen a rate increase. Now, the girls still are more at risk, but the boys have seen an increase. And again, we see even a lot of targeting against men in a lot of social media where there's a lot of hate leveled against men. But, I'll say to you that the same hatred is leveled against women in the kind of portrayals we see of them in media. And a lot of the time, what we see with people we know, with the kind of selfies they might be posting, sometimes Orthodox people fall into this trap too, and the kind of social media posts they make, looking for affirmations from everyone, showing pictures off of themselves, trying to present their bodies in a beautiful way, trying to show off how fit they are, maybe wearing inappropriate clothing. You see people doing this online all the time. They're modeling this off of other images they're seeing, off of other influencers. And you have to be careful who you let influence you, who you're even looking to become like. As Orthodox Christians, our examples are supposed to be Christ and the saints. We're supposed to become full and in the stature and likeness of the God-man. We are supposed to model our behavior after him, after what we see the saints do. That being said, we have to be careful not to become deluded and think that we're holy people and that we can do everything that St. Paisios did or St. Porphyrios. But we have to look at their disposition. We have to look at their humility, and we have to model it. Do you think St. Paisios or St. Porphyrios would have spent time on Facebook all day? Do you think they would have even bothered with it? Probably not. You know, we have to ask ourselves these questions and think, well, is this really going to be profitable for me? You know, I find this is usually the hardest thing to tell people to fast from. A lot of people seem to struggle to fast from social media far more than they do from food. And Lent is an opportunity for us to learn how to get a control of ourselves, how to redirect our time to other things. You know, if you're fasting from food, but you're not fasting from social media, from bad influences, well, what good is it? You know, are you really improving in your spiritual life? Are you reflecting? You know, read a book. You know, read the Divine Ladder of Ascent if your spiritual father's okay with it. Read The Way of the Pilgrim. You know, read the New Media Epidemic. Read, you know, On Prayer by St. Paisios. Just, you know, do something. Keep up with the daily readings. You know, read a book. Just find a way to improve yourself. Get off the social media. Stop depending on the likes. Stop, you know, drooling after women or men or things, money, lifestyles that may not even be obtainable. You know, things that may not be realistic. And though we see a lot of the time friends and family might be posting what seems like a glamorous trip somewhere, they always seem to have something going on. I'm sure we've all had people like this in our life if we've had social media. You know, they're showing off the fancy food, they're showing off, you know, the places they're going, what they're wearing, what they're doing, how fit they are, how successful, how happy they are. But we don't see what's behind that. We don't see that there could be an impending divorce, that there could be severe illness, that this person might have an existential crisis. There have been supermodels who have said that even when they're with their partners in the bedroom, they have to have a mirror, not because it's that they enjoy that, but to remind themselves that they're real. And this is something that I think happens to a lot of us when we get consumed with social media. We think if we're not being heard, if our opinions are not being validated, if our pictures aren't being liked, that somehow we're not real. And we care more about conforming to an image that the world wants to shape us in. And that image increasingly is less like what Christ would have us conform to, which is himself. We're not becoming more Christ-like by engaging in this, by engaging in Twitter wars. But, you know, and there are times where you have to fight against things that are wrong. You have to call out error. But when it becomes all self-centered and egotistical about your personal feelings and experiences and not the abject reality and the truth, ego's at play. That person is suffering. Now, does that mean you go and necessarily have to fight them and join in on the fight between them and another party? No. No. Because then what? You think you have something so important that it has to be heard? Again, like I said in my last video, none of us are that important. I'm not that important. You know, what's important is the message here. That we need to spend more time on looking into ourselves, seeing what our flaws are, what our imperfections are. Where can we improve? How can we become more like Christ in our day-to-day lives? How can we conduct ourselves in more Christ-like manners? Guys, instead of spending time scrolling through Facebook or getting involved in debates, go and do the dishes, clean the house, spend some time with the kids. Women, instead of worrying about how you look and taking good selfies or worrying about what so-and-so is saying or doing, take a break, go read a book, talk to your man about something. You know, and if you're single and if you're living on your own, take some time. Take some time to reflect. Where do you want to go in life? What are your goals? Do you really want to be the person that just spends all their time on social media and bases what they do and think off of what someone else is doing? Or do you want to exercise that free will that God has given you and seek a better path? Do you want to serve him? Do you want to, you know, maybe spend more time reading the Bible? Spend some time reading the lives of saints. You know, there's great collections of them that you can get. You can always read A Life of a Saint online for free. There's, you know, Tresagian Films, which has a great channel for that. You know, do something that furthers your development, that furthers your character. And remind yourselves that if someone disagrees with you or says something that you don't like, that this isn't an attack against you as a person. This does not determine your self-worth. You know, it cannot harm your character, who you are, your walk in Christ, if you don't let it. But if you engage and fight back and get worked up, it has. So, you know, take the time to go pray, reflect, commit to improving yourself, commit to repenting. You know, remember, Pascha's coming. Look to have a resurrection. You know, become a new person. Renew yourself. Seek always to conform yourself to the image of Christ. Who cares what so-and-so online is saying and thinks? Who cares about his academic or nuanced views on things? They're likely wrong. Pay attention to what priests are teaching and look at the fruits of what they're teaching. You see a lot of people have converted to Orthodoxy because of this. And then there are some that get confused and fight and argue because of a divisive opinion that someone else introduces because they think they have the right to. Why? Because they have an MDiv? Who cares about that? And unless you're putting that PhD truly to good work and serving God and teaching others on a level they can understand, then it's useless. Go to Orthodox Ethos. You're going to get a lot of good education there on various topics that people have questions about. Father Peter has his PhD in dogmatic theology. He knows what he's talking about, and the best part is he distills it in a way that can be easily understood. Jay Dyer, he talks about a lot of complex ideas and might help you even decipher some of the symbolism that Hollywood and the world is throwing at you. He puts his philosophy degree to good use by teaching other people. David Erhan, that man has a lot of incredible insight. I don't know if he has an education or anything. That doesn't matter. What he says is correct. He's drawing from the Holy Fathers. Look at Orthodox Talks with Priest Monk Cosmos. I don't think he's ever been to seminary. He's a priest monk. He was a school teacher. But this man knows what he's talking about. Pay attention to good teachers. And the bad ones out there who might slander them or attack them, who cares? God will deal with them in his own time. Who cares? Don't let their posturing get to you. Don't engage in it yourself. Because the only one who will be harmed at the end of the day is you. So with that said, everyone, have a blessed Lent. Please feel free to like, share, subscribe, comment, share maybe some ideas that you'd like to see for future videos. Don't fight. Don't bring up names of people, that have been involved in some conflicts recently. No bad mouthing or slandering anyone in the comments and saying so-and-so has this problem or that. Like I said earlier, we all have character flaws. The church is a hospital for the sick, not for the perfect. And any priest or someone who might be trying to, convey that they're perfect, there's always something going on behind closed doors. Remember, though we wear the cross and the cassock, we're still human. We still need Christ and the saints just as much as you do. We need the sacraments just as much as you do. So get to confession, get to Holy Communion, continue your fast. Try to fast from social media. Really take a break from it. Don't allow that compulsion to get you. And if it's something that's really ruling your life, consider getting rid of it once and for all. Cold turkey's the way. Do it once and for all. Do it for you. Do it for your family. If you got a wife, if you got kids, all the more reason to. If you're on your own, still a good reason to. Work on perfecting yourself as much as you can. Strive for better things. Watch Father Josiah Trenham's talks, listen to some of his lectures, check out his global catechism. Do something that is productive. Do something that will further your spiritual, mental development. God bless you all. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful evening.